Your boyfriend is sleeping with my fiancée, Korean Mafia boss tells black woman at the party. The invitation alone felt expensive. Heavy ivory cardstock. Gold embossed lettering. A private crest Janet didn't recognize. Daniel had smiled when it arrived. This is big, Janet. Elite circle type of big, he said, adjusting his cufflinks in the mirror. Just smile. Be charming. Let me handle the rest. Janet should have noticed the way he avoided eye contact. But love has a way of softening suspicion. The mansion stood on a hill overlooking the city skyline, all glass walls and intimidating silence. Valets moved like synchronized shadows. Luxury cars purred instead of roared. Janet stepped out in her golden satin gown, the fabric catching the light like liquid silk. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't trying to compete. But she didn't blend in either. Inside, crystal chandeliers dripped from ceilings high enough to echo secrets. A live string quartet played something slow and haunting. The scent of expensive perfume and aged whiskey lingered in the air. Men in tailored suits. Women in diamonds that whispered generational wealth. And Janet, a university graduate student who believed in love more than status. Daniel's hand rested at the small of her back, but it felt distant. Stick close, he murmured. She smiled politely at strangers who barely masked their curiosity. Some eyes lingered too long, not with admiration, but assessment. Then the atmosphere shifted. It was subtle. Conversations lowered half a tone. Shoulders straightened. Space opened near the entrance without anyone being told to move. He had arrived. The Korean Mafia boss. He didn't need an announcement. Power introduced him before he spoke. Tall. Composed. Dressed in a black suit tailored to perfection. No flashy jewelry. No exaggerated display. His presence was quiet, and somehow louder than everyone else combined. Janet had heard whispers before tonight. That he controlled shipping routes. Private security firms. Political favors. That he never raised his voice. That when he made a decision, the world adjusted. But seeing him in person was different. He didn't look cruel. He looked calculating. And tired. As he moved through the room, people greeted him with careful respect. Some bowed their heads slightly. Others smiled too eagerly. But he never lingered. Then, as if drawn by something neither of them understood, his eyes lifted and locked onto hers. Janet's breath caught. It wasn't desire. It wasn't curiosity. It was recognition. Like he had been searching for someone in a crowded room, and unexpectedly found her. She quickly looked away, heat creeping up her neck. Why was he staring at her? She scanned the room for Daniel. He wasn't beside her anymore. Her heart skipped. A slow, uneasy feeling settled in her stomach. She spotted him across the ballroom. Laughing. Too comfortably. Too intimately. With a woman in a white gown. The woman was stunning. Tall, elegant, dripping in diamonds. The kind of beauty sculpted by elite salons and private stylists. Her hand rested on Daniel's chest. Not casually. Familiar. Janet's chest tightened. Maybe she was overthinking. Maybe this was networking. Maybe. You should not watch for too long, a calm voice said behind her. Janet turned. He was closer now. The Mafia boss. Up close, his features were sharper. Controlled. His gaze held intelligence that felt almost invasive. I'm sorry, she managed. His eyes briefly flickered toward Daniel and the woman in white. Then back to Janet. Your boyfriend is sleeping with my fiancée. There was no dramatic pause. No emotional charge. Just fact. The music continued playing. Glasses clinked. Laughter echoed somewhere behind them. But Janet heard none of it. Her body reacted before her mind did, a cold wave traveling from her spine to her fingertips. That's not possible, she said automatically. His expression didn't change. I would not approach you publicly if I were uncertain. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Across the room, Daniel leaned closer to the woman in white, whispering something that made her smile in a way that was not polite. Janet's heart began to fracture quietly, without sound. Why are you telling me? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. For the first time, something human flickered across the Mafia boss's face. Not anger. Not pride. Disappointment. Because humiliation should never be a surprise, he replied softly. And for reasons she couldn't explain. Standing beside the most feared man in the room, Janet felt the first wave of truth wash over her. The party hadn't just changed. How life had. And she didn't even know yet how deep the betrayal ran. The Mafia boss extended his hand slightly. Not touching her. Not forcing. Simply offering. Would you like to see the evidence? He asked quietly. Or would you prefer to watch them continue? Janet's heart pounded. Across the room, Daniel laughed again. The woman in white adjusted his tie. And the chandelier lights shimmered like falling stars over a night that was about to burn. Janet stared at his outstretched hand, not because she trusted him, but because she suddenly didn't trust the man across the room anymore. Show me, she said. Her voice didn't shake. She refused to let it. The Korean Mafia boss gave a small nod and stepped slightly aside, guiding her toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, near a marble pillar where the music softened and the chandeliers cast long golden shadows. He unlocked his phone with calm precision. No hesitation. No drama. Just certainty. He turned the screen toward her. Messages. Intimate. Familiar. Recent. I miss last night. He suspects nothing. Same hotel next Thursday? Janet's stomach dropped. Her eyes moved lower. Hotel confirmations. Dates that overlapped with nights Daniel claimed he was working late. A photo. Not explicit. But undeniable. Daniel's watch. His hand. The white sleeve of the fiancée's gown visible in the background. Janet inhaled slowly through her nose. She would not cry here. Not in a room full of predators disguised as elites. Are you sure it's not old? She asked quietly, grasping for logic. It began 3 months ago, he replied. Intensified last month. He wasn't guessing. He knew. You investigated, she asked. A faint pause. I verify before I accuse. His tone wasn't defensive. It was factual. Strategic. Janet swallowed. Across the room, Daniel's hand now rested comfortably at the woman's waist. The woman in white. The fiancé. Janet studied her carefully this time. The diamond on her finger was massive. The kind that made headlines. She's marrying you, Janet said slowly. Why risk that? The Mafia boss's jaw tightened ever so slightly. Some people, he said quietly, confuse access with entitlement. That sentence lingered between them. Janet looked back at the phone. Why tell me tonight? She asked again. You could have handled this privately. Destroyed him quietly. Ended it without spectacle. A subtle shift in his expression. I do not punish someone without allowing truth to stand in the light first. That surprised her. She studied him differently now. You're not angry? She asked. His eyes met hers. I am, he admitted. But anger is expensive. I prefer investments. Despite everything, Janet almost laughed. You talk like a corporation. I built one. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was charged. Across the room, Daniel glanced around, and froze when he saw Janet standing beside the Mafia boss. Panic flickered across his face. The fiancé followed his gaze. Her posture stiffened. Janet felt it, the shift, the moment before collision. Her chest tightened again, but something unexpected happened. She didn't feel small. Standing beside this powerful, composed man, she felt anchored. You deserve the chance to walk away with dignity, he said softly. Not as a threat. As a gift. Janet looked up at him. Do you? She asked. The question caught him off guard. Do you deserve dignity in this too? She clarified. For the first time since approaching her, his calm mask cracked slightly. Deserving has little to do with outcomes in my world, he said quietly. Something in that answer made her heart ache. He wasn't just exposing betrayal. He was living in it. The music swelled into a slower melody. Couples moved toward the dance floor. Laughter resumed. The party continued, unaware that 2 engagements were collapsing in opposite corners of the same room. Janet exhaled slowly. If I confront him now, she said, it becomes spectacle. It already is, he replied, eyes flicking toward the whispers beginning to spread. She glanced around. They were being watched. Not openly, but carefully. Power always attracted an audience. Why me? She asked suddenly. He frowned slightly. You could have ignored me. Let me figure it out on my own. His gaze softened, just a fraction. When betrayal happens publicly, he said, the humiliation multiplies. A pause. I chose to reduce yours. That sentence hit deeper than she expected. Janet blinked rapidly, fighting emotion. You don't even know me, she whispered. I know enough, he replied. Her heart skipped. Dangerous. This was dangerous.
Not because he was a mafia boss, but because he saw her, not as an accessory, not as a social ornament, as a person caught in the same storm.
Across the ballroom, Daniel started walking toward them.
Fast.
The fiancé hesitated, then followed.
Janet straightened her shoulders.
What happens now? She asked quietly. The mafia boss slipped his phone back into his pocket. Now, he said calmly, we stop pretending.
Daniel reached them first.
Janet, what is this? He demanded, eyes darting between them. The fiancé stood slightly behind him, elegant but tense.
Janet felt the tremor in her chest again. But this time, she didn't feel alone.
The mafia boss remained beside her.
Not touching, not claiming, simply present. And somehow,
that presence felt stronger than any accusation.
Janet looked at Daniel, then at the woman in white, then back at the man who told her the truth.
The chandelier lights shimmered again.
But now they felt harsher, exposing, revealing. Janet inhaled slowly, and realized something unexpected. The pain was real, but so was her clarity.
And standing beside the calmest man in the room, she felt her fear slowly transforming into something else. Strength.
Daniel's voice cut through the music. Janet, we need to talk. Now. His tone wasn't apologetic. It was irritated, like she had embarrassed him.
Janet felt something inside her finally shift.
Not heartbreak. Clarity.
Before she could respond, the Korean mafia boss spoke, calm, measured. You should lower your voice, he said gently. People are listening.
Daniel stiffened.
You stay out of this. The fiancé's perfectly painted smile trembled at the edges. This is a misunderstanding, she added quickly.
Janet studied both of them. The guilt was no longer subtle. It was loud.
You booked the penthouse suite under my company's subsidiary account, the mafia boss continued smoothly.
Twice.
Gasps whispered through nearby guests.
Daniel's face drained of color. Janet didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply removed Daniel's hand from her arm. How long? She asked.
Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. It wasn't serious.
That was the wrong answer.
Across from them, the fiancée stepped back slightly, distancing herself.
Not from shame. From exposure. The mafia boss turned to Janet.
Dance with me.
The words were soft, but decisive. It wasn't about romance. It was about reclaiming dignity.
The string quartet transitioned into a slower piece, almost cinematic in its timing. The entire room felt suspended. Janet hesitated only a second before placing her hand in his.
His palm was warm, steady, grounding.
He led her to the dance floor, not possessively, not dramatically,
just calmly.
Like he had nothing to prove. And that confidence made the room part around them. His hand settled lightly at her waist.
Respectfully.
No pressure. Her other hand rested against his shoulder, the fabric of his suit smooth beneath her fingertips. You're surprisingly composed, she murmured. I prefer control to chaos, he replied. She gave a faint, breathless laugh. I'm trying not to fall apart in front of strangers.
You are not falling apart, he said quietly. His eyes held hers.
You are standing. The words landed deeper than he probably intended. They moved slowly, effortlessly. He was a skilled dancer, precise but fluid. Each step deliberate. Are you doing this to make them jealous? She asked. His jaw shifted slightly. No. Then why? He guided her into a slow turn. The emerald fabric of her dress shimmered under the chandelier light. When she faced him again, he answered. Because humiliation isolates.
A pause.
And no one should face it alone.
Her breath caught.
There was something in his voice, not rehearsed, not strategic. Human. You don't seem like the type to care about isolation, she said softly. His gaze darkened slightly, not with anger. With memory. My world is built on loyalty, he said. Betrayal is not unfamiliar. That sentence carried weight. She felt it. You loved her?
Janet asked carefully. A brief silence.
I respected what the alliance represented, he replied. That's not what I asked. For the first time, a faint smile touched his lips. You are very direct. I'm hurt, she answered honestly. I don't have energy for politics. He studied her face, the strength in her posture, the way her chin lifted even when her eyes shimmered with unshed emotion.
No, he admitted quietly. I did not love her. The music swelled. Couples rotated around them, but it felt like the room had blurred. Like the dance floor existed in its own orbit. Across the ballroom, Daniel watched. Frustration written all over him. The fiancé whispered sharply in his ear. Janet noticed. Strangely, it didn't break her. It freed her. Do you know what hurts the most? She said. He shook his head slightly. That I would have defended him. If someone told me this yesterday, I would have called them a liar. His thumb brushed lightly against the small of her back. Not intimate, just grounding. That is not weakness, he said. That is loyalty. She looked up at him. And loyalty matters to you. It is everything. Their steps slowed. The music softened toward its end. She became aware of how close they were. Not indecent, but intimate enough to feel the steady rhythm of his breathing. You're not what I expected, she admitted. What did you expect? A cruel man. A subtle raise of his brow. And what do you see? She searched his face. A controlled one. He didn't deny it. I do not destroy without reason, he said calmly. And tonight? His gaze held hers longer than before. Tonight I chose transparency. Her heart skipped again. This wasn't revenge. He could have exposed them brutally, publicly. Instead, he gave her quiet truth. The music came to an end. Applause rippled lightly through the ballroom. But neither of them moved immediately. His hand remained at her waist for half a second longer than necessary. Then he released her. Slowly, carefully, as if afraid sudden movement would break something fragile between them. Thank you, Janet whispered. For what? For not letting me look foolish. His eyes softened again. You never did. Daniel began pushing through the crowd toward them again. Determined. Agitated. The fiancé followed, tension carved across her elegant features. Janet felt it coming, the next confrontation. But this time, she didn't feel like the girl who arrived on Daniel's arm. She felt steady, stronger. And when she glanced at the Korean Mafia boss beside her, she realized something unexpected. The betrayal hurt. But the connection forming in its aftermath? That was dangerous in an entirely different way. As Daniel finally reached them, breath tight with anger, Janet lifted her chin. And for the first time that night, she wasn't afraid of what would happen next. Daniel didn't stop until he was standing directly in front of them. Too close. Too defensive. What are you trying to do? He demanded, looking at the Korean Mafia boss but speaking to Janet. Embarrass me. Janet almost laughed at the irony. Embarrass him? The Mafia boss didn't flinch. His hands rested calmly at his sides, posture relaxed, gaze steady. I believe, he said evenly, you handled that part yourself. A few nearby guests pretended not to listen. But no one walked away. The fiancée stepped forward now, reclaiming her composure with visible effort. This has clearly been exaggerated, she said smoothly. Private messages can be misinterpreted. Janet turned to her fully for the first time. Up close, the woman was breathtaking. Perfect skin. Perfect posture. But her eyes were calculating. Not remorseful. Janet surprised herself by speaking calmly. Were the hotel reservations misinterpreted too? Silence. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. It wasn't serious, he repeated. It just happened. The Mafia boss tilted his head slightly. Twice a week for 3 months is not accidental. That landed like a quiet explosion. A man from across the room coughed awkwardly. Someone's champagne glass paused mid-A. The fiancée's mask cracked. You had no right to investigate me, she snapped, her voice sharpening. I had every right, he replied, still calm. You signed a legal agreement before accepting my ring. Ah, there it was. This wasn't just romance. It was alliance. Power. Reputation. Janet looked at Daniel slowly. Were you ever going to tell me? She asked. Daniel's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. I was going to end it, he said weakly. When? Janet pressed. He didn't answer. The silence was heavier than any confession. The fiancé turned to the Mafia boss, anger rising. This is ridiculous. You're making a scene over something that meant nothing. His gaze sharpened, not cruel, but cutting. If it meant nothing, he said quietly, why risk everything? Her lips parted. No answer came. Janet felt something unexpected wash over her. Not just heartbreak. Disappointment in herself.
She had defended Daniel so fiercely in conversations with friends.
Ignored subtle signs. Silenced instincts. And now, the truth stood naked in front of her. Daniel stepped closer to her. Janet, come on.
Don't do this.
We can talk at home.
Home. The word felt foreign now.
She looked down at her hand.
The delicate bracelet he bought her last Christmas shimmered under the chandelier light.
She unclasped it slowly. The room watched. Not loudly, but intently. She placed it in Daniel's palm.
You should give this to someone who thinks loyalty is optional, she said softly. Daniel's face hardened.
You're choosing him? He asked, nodding toward the Mafia boss. Janet's chin lifted.
I'm choosing myself.
That shifted the energy.
The Mafia boss did not smile.
Did not gloat.
He simply stood beside her, a steady presence, not a savior. The fiancée let out a small, frustrated laugh. This is dramatic, she muttered. You're overreacting.
Janet met her gaze evenly. No, she said.
I'm reacting exactly enough. A quiet murmur moved through the room. The balance of power had shifted, not because of threats, not because of dominance,
but because Janet refused to shrink.
Daniel's pride flared one last time. You'll regret this, he said. Before Janet could respond, the Mafia boss spoke. If she regrets anything, he said calmly, it will not be honesty. That sentence silenced the final thread of Daniel's confidence.
The fiancée grabbed Daniel's arm sharply. We're leaving, she hissed. And just like that, they walked away. Not triumphantly, not together, but exposed. The ballroom slowly exhaled.
Conversations resumed, softer, more cautious. The scandal had unfolded without shouting, without chaos. Just truth. Janet stood very still. The adrenaline began to fade. The weight of what just happened settled in. Her relationship was over. Publicly. Permanently. She didn't expect the sudden wave of emotion that followed. Not tears, but emptiness.
The Mafia boss turned slightly toward her. Would you like to leave? He asked gently.
The question held no assumption. Only consideration.
She looked around the ballroom. At the glittering chandeliers.
At the strangers who would whisper about tonight for weeks.
At the place where she walked in believing she was loved. Yes, she said quietly. They walked toward the exit together. Not touching, but aligned.
As they stepped onto the marble terrace outside, cool night air wrapped around them. The city skyline glittered below like scattered diamonds.
Janet inhaled deeply. I thought it would hurt more, she admitted.
It will, he replied honestly.
She appreciated that. No sugarcoating.
No false comfort. But it will hurt with clarity, he added.
She looked at him.
You didn't raise your voice once, she observed. I do not compete in chaos, he said calmly. I remove myself from it.
There was strength in that. Real strength. Not loud.
Not aggressive.
Strategic.
Janet wrapped her arms around herself against the breeze. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Two betrayed souls standing above a glittering city. You didn't have to stand there with me, she said softly.
Yes,
he replied.
I did. She met his eyes. Why? He held her gaze.
Because tonight, they underestimated you.
A pause.
And I dislike underestimation.
Her heart skipped.
The tension between them shifted again, subtle, electric. Behind them, the ballroom doors remained open.
But neither of them stepped back inside. And for the first time since the night began, Janet didn't feel like the woman who was cheated on. She felt like the woman who walked away. But as she reached for her phone to silence it, the screen lit up.
A notification.
From an unknown number.
A single message preview. You don't know the full story about him either.
Her fingers stilled.
The Mafia boss noticed the change in her expression.
What is it? He asked quietly. Janet looked up at him.
Confusion mixing with the first flicker of doubt. I think, she said slowly, this isn't as simple as we thought. The city lights flickered below. And somewhere beneath the calm surface of dignity and new connection, a deeper secret was waiting.
The night air was cooler now. Quieter.
The ballroom doors had finally closed behind them, muting the music and gossip. Only the city skyline stretched before them, glittering, indifferent, endless.
Janet stared at the message on her phone again.
You don't know the full story about him either. Her chest tightened. The Korean Mafia boss, Minute J, watched her carefully. Not suspicious. Observant.
Another surprise? He asked calmly. She hesitated. I just got a message, she said slowly.
From an unknown number. Regarding
you. He didn't react immediately, just nodded once.
What does it say?
Janet showed him the screen. He read it without visible emotion, then handed the phone back. Do you believe it? He asked. She searched his face.
I don't know what to believe tonight.
That was honest. And honesty felt safer than pretending.
Minute J stepped closer to the terrace railing, hands sliding into his pockets. The city lights reflected faintly in his eyes. In my world, he said quietly, people send warnings when they want leverage. That sounds ominous. It is usually strategic. She moved beside him, resting her palms lightly on the cool marble edge of the balcony. You didn't look surprised. I am rarely surprised.
She studied him carefully.
You really don't get angry, do you? A faint exhale left him, almost a quiet laugh.
I do. Then where is it? He turned slightly toward her.
Anger makes mistakes. I cannot afford mistakes.
The words weren't arrogant.
They were conditioned.
Janet tilted her head.
That sounds lonely.
That landed. He didn't answer immediately.
Below them, headlights traced silent paths through the city streets. Power, he said finally, creates distance. From enemies. From everyone. The honesty in his voice surprised her. She wrapped her arms around herself, not from cold this time.
Why tell me that?
His gaze held hers steadily.
Because you asked.
No performance.
No manipulation. Just answer.
A soft silence settled between them, not heavy, but thoughtful. Janet looked down at her phone again. You're not going to ask who sent it. If you want me to investigate, I will.
And if I don't? Then I will respect that. She blinked.
You really are different from what people say.
What do they say?
That you're ruthless.
A pause.
I am, he replied calmly. In business. And in love. His eyes shifted slightly, deeper, more personal. I have no experience with that. Her heartbeat stumbled. You were engaged. Yes. That's not experience. That was strategy.
The simplicity of his answer made her chest ache.
You deserve more than strategy, she said softly. His gaze didn't leave her.
Do I? Yes.
The conviction in her voice startled even her.
He stepped closer.
Not enough to invade her space.
Just enough to narrow the distance.
And what do you deserve, Janet? The way he said her name, slow, deliberate, sent a quiet warmth through her.
I deserve honesty, she answered. He nodded once.
Then you will always receive it from me. The weight of that promise lingered in the air.
They stood close now.
Close enough to notice the small details. The faint crease between his brows when he thought too deeply, the way her fingers tapped lightly against the marble when she was anxious.
Can I ask you something? She said.
You have not hesitated yet. A faint smile curved her lips. Why did you really come over to me tonight? His jaw shifted slightly, not defensive, but reflective.
I saw the way he looked at her, he said. And I recognized it.
Recognized it? Yes. He hesitated, the first true hesitation she'd seen from him. I have seen that look directed at me before.
From partners. From allies.
From people who wanted access. Her breath softened. You didn't want me blindsided.
No.
You don't even know me. I know enough.
That sentence again. Dangerous. Comforting. She studied him carefully.
You were watching me before you approached. Yes.
Why?
His gaze flickered briefly to her lips, then back to her eyes.
You did not belong in that room. The words could have been insulting, but they weren't.
You mean I'm not elite enough, she teased lightly.
No, he said quietly.
I mean you were real.
That stole her breath.
I do not often see real, he added. The vulnerability in that admission shifted something between them. This wasn't revenge chemistry. This wasn't rebound attraction. It was recognition. Two people who had just watched illusions collapse. The city breeze moved a strand of hair across her cheek. Without thinking, he reached out, then stopped himself halfway. The restraint was deliberate. Careful. May I? He asked softly. Her heart pounded. She nodded.
His fingers brushed lightly against her skin as he tucked the strand behind her ear. The touch was gentle, respectful, but electric. Neither of them moved immediately after. The distance between them now felt intentional, charged. "Minute J," she whispered.
Yes.
"If I find out there's something about you I should know, I won't stay silent."
I would expect nothing less. That wasn't intimidation. It was approval.
Her phone buzzed again. Both of them glanced down.
Another message from the same unknown number. Ask him why the engagement really ended. Janet's pulse quickened.
She looked up slowly. "Why did it really end?" she asked. His expression didn't harden. It deepened. "I ended it," he said.
"Weeks ago."
Her brows lifted slightly.
"But tonight." She refused to accept it.
A pause.
"And your boyfriend did not know?"
That complicated everything.
"You were already done with her?" "Yes." "Then why expose it publicly?"
His eyes held hers.
"Because she intended to announce the wedding date tonight."
Janet's breath caught.
"She was going to stand beside me," he continued calmly, "and present a lie to this entire room. And Daniel was going to remain her secret."
The realization settled heavily.
"This wasn't revenge," Janet said slowly.
"No."
"It was correction." "Yes."
She absorbed that. The narrative shifted in her mind. The unknown sender wanted doubt. But Minute J's answers were steady. Direct. No cracks.
"Do you want me to regret standing beside you?" she asked quietly.
"No."
"Then don't give me a reason to."
A subtle warmth touched his expression.
"I won't." The tension between them softened, but didn't disappear.
It transformed. From shock to possibility. The city hummed below them. The scandal inside the ballroom was already becoming gossip. But out here, something quieter was forming. Minute J reached into his pocket slowly.
Janet's breath hitched instinctively.
He pulled out a simple black business card. No logo. Just his name and a private number.
"If you choose to investigate that message," he said, handing it to her, "call me first."
She took it carefully. "And if I choose not to?" "Call me anyway." Her lips curved. For the first time that night, she felt something beyond betrayal. Curiosity. Connection. Possibility.
But as she slipped the card into her clutch, her phone vibrated one more time.
A final message.
"He didn't tell you about Seoul, did he?"
Janet's smile faded slightly. She looked up at him slowly. "Minute J."
"Yes." "What happened in Seoul?"
The air shifted again. Subtle. Serious. His gaze darkened just a fraction. And for the first time that night, he didn't answer immediately. The night air suddenly felt thinner.
"What happened in Seoul?"
Janet asked again, softer this time.
Minute J didn't look away. But something in his expression shifted, not guilt.
"Memory. You deserve context," he said quietly.
He stepped back slightly, giving her space instead of closing it. "In Seoul," he began, "my engagement was supposed to become permanent."
Janet stayed silent. Listening.
"Her family controls logistics channels in East Asia. My organization controls private security infrastructure. The merger would have created influence."
"You mean power?" Janet said.
"Yes."
He didn't pretend otherwise.
The announcement was scheduled for a gala event in Seoul next month.
Contracts were drafted. Press prepared. Janet's pulse slowed just enough to think clearly.
"But you said you ended it weeks ago."
"I did." "Why?"
His jaw tightened subtly, not in anger, but resolve. "Because I discovered she had already been negotiating separate deals behind my back."
Janet blinked.
"With Daniel?"
"No." That answer surprised her.
"With a rival syndicate."
The word lingered in the air. Not dramatic, but heavy.
"You think she was using the marriage to access your operations?"
Janet asked carefully. "I do not think," he replied calmly.
"I confirm."
A pause.
"I ended the engagement privately in Seoul."
"And she refused to accept it," Janet finished.
"Yes."
Janet processed that.
"So tonight, she planned to act like nothing changed." "Yes." "And announce the wedding date anyway." "Yes."
Janet exhaled slowly. "That message," she murmured, glancing at her phone. "Whoever sent it wanted me to doubt you." "Of course." His tone wasn't arrogant.
Just analytical. If you distrust me, he added quietly, you distance yourself.
Her eyes met his.
And that benefits who?
He held her gaze.
Those who prefer I remain predictable. A slow realization unfolded in her chest. This isn't just about relationships, is it?
It rarely is, he replied. She searched his face. You could have ignored me tonight.
You could have handled your engagement privately.
Yes.
Then why didn't you?
His answer came without hesitation.
Because she crossed into your life.
That landed differently. He hadn't exposed the affair to protect pride. He exposed it because it spilled beyond strategy. Because it affected her.
You don't even know me, Janet whispered again.
I know enough, he repeated.
Silence stretched, but it was charged, not empty. The breeze lifted her hair again.
This time he didn't reach for it. He waited. Janet studied him carefully.
Is there anything else about Soul I should know?
His eyes sharpened slightly.
You are very thorough. I don't like stepping into shadows blindly. A faint, approving look crossed his face. In Soul, he said slowly, her family threatened reputational damage if I dissolved the engagement.
And?
I told them reputation is replaceable.
Janet's brows lifted slightly. And what isn't? He looked directly at her.
Integrity.
That word echoed between them. Powerful. Grounded. Then why didn't you expose her then? Janet asked.
Because public scandal weakens leverage. And tonight. Tonight, he said calmly, she chose spectacle.
Janet absorbed that.
The unknown sender's final message lingered in her mind. He didn't tell you about Soul, did he?
She looked at him again.
You're not hiding anything else.
No.
The certainty in his voice was steady, unshaken. And strangely, she believed him. Not because he was powerful, but because he hadn't tried to soften the truth.
He had given it to her clean. Unpolished. Honest. Her phone buzzed again.
This time, a photo came through.
Janet's breath caught as she opened it. It was a picture of Minute J in Seoul, standing beside his former fiancée.
But the image was cropped intentionally, removing context.
Removing distance. Making them look intimate. She showed him. He barely glanced at it.
That was taken at the contract dissolution meeting, he said. She staged it. To look romantic. To look unresolved. Janet felt the last thread of doubt loosen. They are trying to create a narrative, she murmured. Yes.
Why? His gaze held hers steadily.
Because power shifts when perception shifts.
A pause.
And tonight, perception changed.
Janet looked down at the city again.
So by standing next to you, you altered that shift.
Her heart skipped.
Was that strategic too?
He didn't answer immediately.
Instead, he stepped closer, but slowly, giving her every opportunity to move away.
She didn't. No, he said quietly.
That was instinct.
Her breath softened. That's more dangerous, she whispered. Yes.
The space between them narrowed, not rushed, not reckless.
Intentional. You're not afraid, she asked.
Of what? Letting someone close.
A faint smile touched his lips.
I am. And? He studied her face, not her dress, not her posture.
Huh.
But I am more afraid of living untouched. The honesty in that admission made her chest tighten. Minute J. Yes. If this becomes complicated. It already is.
She almost laughed. He was right. Scandal. Power. Anonymous messages. Nothing about this was simple.
But complicated doesn't mean wrong, he added quietly.
Her heart pounded louder now. The city below felt distant. The party behind them forgotten.
It was just the two of them suspended between betrayal and possibility. I won't be a pawn in anyone's power game, she said firmly. You won't be, he replied just as firmly. Promise. He stepped closer still, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him without contact.
I do not make promises lightly, he said.
Then don't make it lightly. Their eyes locked. The tension wasn't explosive.
It was steady.
Intentional. I promise, he said quietly. The sincerity in his voice wrapped around her like something solid.
Her phone vibrated one last time. But this time,
it wasn't the unknown number.
It was a calendar alert. A reminder Daniel had set weeks ago.
Engagement dinner with Janet's parents, next Saturday.
Her chest tightened. Reality intruded. She looked up at Minute J slowly.
Life doesn't pause just because truth surfaces, she said softly.
No, he agreed. It rearranges. She studied him carefully.
Are you prepared for rearrangement? His gaze didn't waver. I built my life on adaptation.
A pause.
But this feels different.
How?
For once, he said quietly, I am not calculating the outcome.
Her heart skipped.
And that scares you? Yes.
Good. He blinked slightly. Good. Yes, she said.
It means it's real. The breeze moved between them again. This time, he closed the remaining distance, slowly, deliberately.
Not touching.
Just close enough to feel inevitable. Janet, he said softly. Yes. If you walk away now, I will respect it. And if I don't? His eyes darkened just slightly, not with danger. With depth. Then I will take you to Seoul. Her breath caught. Not as leverage, he added. Not as strategy. Then as what?
He held her gaze.
As possibility.
The word lingered. Powerful. Terrifying. Exciting. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she slipped his black card fully into her purse. A silent choice.
Not a declaration.
But not retreat either. He noticed. And for the first time, he smiled without restraint. But just as the moment settled, the ballroom doors opened behind them.
One of his trusted advisors stepped out quietly. Sir, the man said respectfully, the board has been informed. They are requesting a statement by morning. Minute J didn't break eye contact with Janet. Let them wait, he replied calmly. The advisor hesitated, surprised, then nodded and stepped back inside. Janet's pulse quickened. You're postponing your board for me, she asked. For clarity, he corrected. A beat. And perhaps, he added softly, for something I did not expect to find tonight.
Her heart thundered. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. The unknown number. Final message.
If you go to Seoul with him, you won't come back the same. Janet stared at the screen. Then slowly lifted her eyes to Minute J. Maybe, she said quietly. That's the point.
His gaze deepened. And somewhere between scandal and skyline, a decision was forming. But neither of them realized yet. Seoul wouldn't just test their trust.
It would test who they were willing to become. The city lights flickered beneath them like scattered stars.
Janet looked at the final message again.
If you go to Seoul with him, you won't come back the same. Her heartbeat steadied instead of racing. Maybe, she repeated softly. That's the point.
Minute J studied her carefully. Most people stepped back when warned. Janet leaned forward. That message doesn't scare you? He asked.
It does, she admitted. But staying the same scares me more.
That answer did something to him. Something subtle. Respect deepened into admiration.
He moved closer, not to claim her, not to overpower the moment, but to stand level with her.
Seoul is not just a city, he said quietly. It is where alliances are built. Where enemies smile politely.
Where weakness is tested.
And you think I'm weak? She asked. His eyes sharpened immediately. No.
Then why explain it like that? Because I will not romanticize what I offer.
That honesty again. Sharp.
Unfiltered.
I don't want a fantasy, Janet said.
I want truth. You will have it.
A soft silence stretched between them. Behind them, the ballroom had returned to controlled normalcy. Damage control. Strategic conversations. Public relations.
Minute J's world was already adjusting.
But out here, time felt suspended. Tell me something, Janet said.
Yes. If I come to Seoul, what am I to you?
He didn't answer immediately. For the first time since she met him, he chose his words carefully.
You would not be a replacement, he said.
Good.
You would not be a symbol.
She nodded once.
You would be a woman I am choosing to know.
Her breath softened.
And if I choose you?
His voice lowered slightly.
Then I will not treat you like an accessory to power.
A pause.
I will treat you like a partner.
That word carried weight. Not possession. Not dependency. Equality.
Janet stepped closer now, closing the final inch of distance between them. You said earlier that power creates distance, she murmured. Yes. Then maybe it's time you learn how to close it. Something flickered in his expression, not dominance, not control. Emotion, raw and unexpected. You are not afraid of me, he said quietly. No, she replied. I'm not. That truth hung between them like something sacred. He lifted his hand slowly, not touching her yet. Waiting. She bridged the gap herself, placing her hand in his. Intentional. Chosen. The contact was warm, steady, electric in a way that didn't feel reckless. It felt aligned. I don't want to be rescued, Janet said softly. I don't want to rescue you, he replied. Good. I want to build with you. Her pulse skipped. Build what? His gaze held hers, unwavering. Something stronger than strategy. The wind shifted slightly, brushing against them as if sealing the moment. For the first time that night, Janet allowed herself to feel it fully. Not the betrayal, not the humiliation, but the beginning. You postponed your board meeting, she said. Yes. That's risky. So are you. A small smile touched her lips. I don't come with contracts. I prefer clarity. She searched his face one more time, looking for cracks, manipulation, hidden motives. She found none. Only a man who had been betrayed, choosing transparency instead of vengeance. You're not losing power over this, she said carefully. No. You're not distracted. No. Then what is this? His thumb brushed lightly across her knuckles, a subtle, grounding motion. This, he said quietly, is expansion. Her breath caught. I built influence alone, he continued. But influence without connection is hollow. And you think I'm connection. I think you're challenge, he corrected softly. And challenge builds evolution. Her heart thundered. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not as something to possess, but something to grow with. The ballroom doors opened again. This time, his advisor approached more urgently. Sir, the board insists. There are rumors spreading internationally. Minute J didn't release Janet's hand. Let them spread, he said calmly. Prepare the jet for tomorrow. Janet blinked. Tomorrow, she whispered. He turned fully toward her now. Seoul. Her pulse leapt. That's fast. You prefer hesitation? No. Good. The advisor looked between them, understanding dawning, then nodded respectfully and disappeared inside. The night grew quieter. Janet stared at him. You make decisions quickly. I commit quickly once I am certain. And you're certain? His eyes softened, but did not waver. I am certain I do not want this to end at a balcony. Her breath trembled slightly. This was bigger than scandal. Bigger than revenge. It was momentum. But just as she began to settle into that certainty, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. One final message. This time, not a warning. A video clip. Janet hesitated, then pressed play. The footage was grainy. Taken secretly. It showed the Seoul Gala rehearsal weeks ago. Minute J standing at a podium. His former fiancée approaching him. The clip cut abruptly before context formed, making it appear as though he was accepting her publicly. Janet's chest tightened slightly. They are building a narrative, she murmured. Yes. To make you look inconsistent. Yes. And me look naive. His jaw shifted, the only sign of irritation she had seen all night. You are not naive. No, she said slowly. But this will follow us. He stepped closer again. Let it. Her brows lifted. You're not worried. I do not fear narratives, he said calmly. I shape them. The confidence in that statement wasn't arrogance. It was capability. Janet studied him one last time. Then she did something unexpected. She deleted the message. Right in front of him. His gaze sharpened slightly. You didn't even keep it. I don't build relationships on anonymous fear, she replied. That did it. Whatever final wall he had left. It lowered. Not completely. But enough. Tomorrow, she said quietly, we go to Seoul. A slow, genuine smile spread across his face. Not calculated. Not strategic. Real. He lifted her hand to his lips, not a possessive gesture. A promise. Tomorrow, he echoed. The city lights shimmered beneath them.
But as they turned toward the exit together,
A final scene unfolded unnoticed.
inside the ballroom, across the room, Daniel stood near the bar. His expression wasn't heartbroken. It was calculating. And beside him, Minute J's former fiancée whispered something into his ear. They both glanced toward the balcony doors.
Not defeated.
Not ashamed. Planning. Soul will not just test their love.
It will reveal who orchestrated the betrayal from the beginning.
And somewhere above the sleeping city, a private jet engine roared to life.